guys, it's Camera Review for Tolkien. So what Tolkien is essentially about is we center on the real-life portrayal of J.A.R. Tolkien. He, of course, is a very famous writer who wrote the Lord of the Rings books, but this film is not about that. Instead, it focuses on his earlier life at Oxford and the fellowship that he formed with all of these boys, as well as this romance and his developing interest in writing, which eventually spawned the idea for Lord of the Rings, and that's really all there is to say. So Tolkien overall, I was very interested in this film. Now, I have seen some of the Lord of the Rings films, but it's been a few years, and honestly, my knowledge is not the freshest when it comes to them because I was 16, and I don't really think I understood them at the time. So if I watched it now through adult eyes, I'd probably like it a lot more. But of what I saw, they're fantastic, and there's a definite reason why Tolkien is put on the pedestal that he has. So making a biopic about him, obviously, you know, it's a little dangerous because this is someone who is so legendary and someone who is so revered, and so you want to try to be as careful as possible. But at the same time, I mean, this is a man who has a very interesting story and whose past is virtually kind of unknown. A lot of people don't know a lot about him, so I was interested in seeing really what kind of story they were going to tell here. And I have to say that while I don't think this is necessarily a bad movie, it's not a good one either. Tolkien is a very, very mediocre biopic that really does not do what we want it to do. We're just getting to right now, though, starting off with the cast. And easily, that's the saving grace of this entire movie. Really, the entire cast, I think, does do a really great job. But without a doubt, the best thing about this entire film is Nicholas Hoult as J.R. Tolkien, who I think was the perfect casting choice. I mean, coming off the heels of The Favorite and things like that, Hoult has really proven himself to be a very good talent, and he does a very good job here. He really brings a certain life and charisma to this character when, you know, the script and things like that really isn't doing it, and I think he overall definitely did a very good job. You can see how Tolkien was inspired, you know, and things like that, his passion for writing. You could see the direction and things like that, and I think overall he did a good job of portraying this, this visionary, someone who is so respected and things like that. And I do think overall he definitely did a very good job. And even in moments when the movie isn't really working, he still was a standout throughout the entire film. And I thought he did have some really great work here. And the same goes for Lily Collins, who, you know, I just saw her in Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile, and this is not nearly on that level, but she still does do a good job here as the character of Edith. I thought overall she definitely was really good here. Of course, she does become, the real-life, main love interest for Tolkien throughout the film. The two of them have some really good scenes here. Their chemistry whenever they're on the film, it feels very lively and fun, and I thought overall she definitely did do a very good job here. As far as the rest of the cast goes, they're fine. No one really sticks out to me all that much. The younger versions of Tolkien and Edith, I thought they were okay. They didn't really do anything for me, but I thought overall they were fine. Derek Jacobi, I actually really liked as the professor. I actually wanted a lot more of him. He's really not in the movie all that much, but what he has, he does do a very good job with. And all of Tolkien's friends in the movie, none of them really stuck out to me. They all kind of felt like they were giving the same performance, just playing these, people that clearly were friends to him, but none of them really did stick out all that much. But overall, for what this film had, what little of it does accomplish, the acting is definitely pretty decent for the most part. And like I said, Hoult and Collins really do elevate it. Now let's get to the directing and the writing, which this is where we get into my more problematic issues with the film. Now, the directing here, look, I will say this. The directing is not bad to this movie. It just seems a bit confused. I think in general, what Karukoski, sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, what he was trying to accomplish, he does do a good job with. He's clearly trying to give the film a specific style. And the problem is, he just isn't able to fully flesh it out. The movie doesn't really stick out. When it tries to be dramatic, I mean, I guess it works, but the more sort of mythical elements of what he's trying to do, because it's clear he was trying to bring something a little bit more visionary and a little bit more unique to this style, and it's just not presented well very here. And I feel like a better director could have accomplished that a lot better, and again, it just didn't really stick out for me. Easily the biggest problem with this movie is the writing. And look, I'll say this right now, when you're telling a story about someone who is so loved and someone who is so revered, it can be hard to focus on, what story do we really want to tell here? And I get what they were trying to do. This is, just without spoiling anything, this is not the story of how Tolkien created the Middle-earth saga. That doesn't really come into play until the last 5 minutes of the movie. What this film really essentially is trying to do is what inspired him to do that, what got him to write those books. And I get, in a sense, what they were trying to do. The problem is the story they're telling is dreadfully boring. There really is not a lot to latch onto here. Very early on, we basically see the story of him as an orphan. He has to go to this boarding school, and that's where he meets his quote-unquote fellowship of boys. And again, there could have been some really interesting stories here. There could have been a lot they do. The problem is, they don't really do much of anything with this story that is all that interesting. Let's talk about our main character here, Tolkien. I mean, this is someone who is so loved, but in this movie, you really wouldn't be able to notice. I mean, he just seems like any average Joe to you. There really isn't much to latch onto there. He does struggle in school. He has this thing where he will spurt off random gibberish, and I guess that's supposed to show, like, how he developed the language that he did for Lord of the Rings, because as we know, that wasn't a different language, of course. But you really would not be able to tell that this is someone who goes on to write one of the most successful, groundbreaking book series of all time. It really doesn't feel like that. He just feels like any average student. And again, I get that that's what they were trying to go for, but the story they tell is just not interesting. There are things they definitely could have latched onto. There's a great scene between him and this English professor where he's trying to get him to dive more into writing, and you see this is a passion he has. This is something he genuinely does want to do, and I think they did a very good job with that overall. But again, it's just not focused on enough. No, instead we're going to focus on him and this fellowship. And I'll just say right now, that's easily the weakest part of the movie. None of these guys stick out to me. They all just felt like caricatures. You have one of them that's trying to be really tough. You have another one who is so overly nice and things like that. And none of them really stuck out to me that much. I found them all to be very much the same type of character. And I just didn't care about any of them. And they don't do a good job of fleshing them out. And look, maybe in real life they weren't all that interesting, but there are definitely liberties they could have taken where they could have taken these characters and given me a reason to give a shit, because honestly, I don't. And the problem is, this entire movie is contingent upon you caring about his bond with these boys, the only family he's ever had, and I just simply didn't, and I don't think they did a very good job with that. I will say what I did like was the relation between him and Lily Collins. Whenever we focused on that, I actually thought the movie was a little bit better. I actually cared a little bit about their romance, even though it was admittedly forced at first. At first I wasn't really into it, but whenever we cut back to her, the movie seemed to have a little bit more life to it. It started to focus more on the creative aspects of things, how much he likes opera, how much he likes, art and things like that, and I would have wanted to see more of that. I'm not saying focus on the romance, that's not what I'm saying, but I just think there was a better way to tell this story, and look, this is what I would have done. Like, if I was in charge of this movie, this is a story I would have told. So, frequently, there's like this frame story that's going on. We go back to the war when he is, fighting in, the war and everything, and he will sometimes take, things that are very frightening, and he'll try to equate that to something that, he has seen in a book, or something that it's gives him this sense of comfort. And I think that was a really cool idea. But what I think would have been even better is you still could have told the story of the Fellowship, but also have it while he is making the Lord of the Rings books. Then we can realize, okay, that's where that inspiration comes from. That's where this comes from. And I feel like just in general, it would have been a much better story. And I know it's like, of course you want him to do that, but there's a reason why he's so loved. He's not loved because of him and these boys and things like that, and him shouting out these obscenities outside his professor's window. Like, that's not what J.R.R. Tolkien is loved for. That's not what he is loved for, and I just don't think this film does a very good job of really honoring his legacy all that much, and it just didn't really work for me, and especially the ending. I'm not going to get into it too much because, you know, this isn't a story that's very well known, but let's just say there are certain things that lead him to writing the Lord of the Rings books, and we really don't get to see any of that until the last 5 minutes of this movie. Literally, the last 5 minutes of this movie is finally when he decides to sit down and write The Hobbit. And it is really good. I like what they were trying to do. It's just everything that came before it, I just didn't care about. So you have these moments where clearly we're seeing, you know, where he took this inspiration from, but they just didn't do a very good job with fleshing that out. So I just didn't really care about it overall. So yeah, like I said, the story just in general did not do it for me. I really did not find it all that interesting. I get it that they were trying to tell as accurate of a story as possible, but it just didn't really work. I will say the cinematography, though, is gorgeous, especially in the battle scenes. Whenever we cut back to the battle scenes, those scenes are so well filmed. You feel a palpable sense of tension. You feel the weight of what's going on. You feel the anxiety, and I really love the way those scenes were filmed. I thought they did a very good job with that. The stuff you see in the trailer, it is visually stunning, and I wanted more of it, honestly. I really would have wanted to see more of that, because that's when the film, for me, was at its best. That's when I was actually really into the film, but up till then, it was very hard to get invested in what was going on. The score was fine, I guess, not really much to say there, and the editing. This film is way too long. There's a lot of things that they flesh out that I don't really think they need to flesh out. There's also this one awful time skip that I just thought was horribly handled. I mean, it felt like 1 second we're seeing a young J.R.R. Tolkien, and then suddenly he's an adult, and there was no title card or anything. It was very jarring at first, and I get it. You want to treat your audience as smart as possible, but when you have a story that's just not very interesting, you got to do a better job at filling in the gaps, and I just don't think they did a very good job with that here. There's also many scenes, particularly in the first act of the film, that I thought could be completely cut out. There's one scene involving Lily Collins, and I'm like, why is this important? Why are we focusing on this? What is the point of this scene? Why is this here? Why this could have easily just been thrown into a deleted scenes thing, but no, they drag it out, and it just keeps going, and I don't know what the point of it was. Thankfully, it's not the whole movie, but there are definitely scenes that could have been cut out, and they're in here, and I don't know why, and it definitely does hinder the film quite a lot for me. Ultimately, Tolkien, it's not a bad movie. I just don't think it's a very good biopic. It doesn't really honor the legacy in the way we want it to. It focuses on things that, I get it, were inspirations for The Hobbit, but it really doesn't feel like that was the primary focus here. It felt like the primary focus was to show Tolkien as an ordinary person, and when you do that, it makes the story feel a lot less special, and I feel like that was the biggest issue here, is that the way they portrayed him just wasn't very interesting, and it just didn't really work for me overall. Like I said, Nicholas Hoult and Lily Collins are spectacular. I thought their chemistry was very good. I thought they worked very well together. I would have wanted more of them, though. I thought, you know, they both worked very well together, and Hoult does the best with what he has, but there's only so much he can do to, to elevate a very mediocre script, and that's really what we're saddled with here. It's a very mediocre script. It's extremely forgettable. It's a film that, honestly, after I'm done reviewing, I probably will not be thinking about afterward, but overall, this was a very disappointing film for me, and I am going to give Tolkien a C-. Like I said, I know that this story was true, and I know that they had to try to, tell as accurate of a story as possible, but just for me, I didn't find it very interesting. But maybe you guys did. If you guys saw Tolkien, let me know what you guys thought of it. Would love to hear your thoughts, and of course, but that's it for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.